Okay. So the idea is to create just an example, just sort of a planning document for the show tracker one. We're going to do a little bit different one, and I'm going to show you a couple of different strategies that you can use. The thing is that I have, when I've done this before, like there's one that's in the files if you want to go look at it. I think it's way too much like a relational database. I think my thought patterns are just sort of built into those, but I'll show you a couple of things you can do. I tend to break everything into separate collections, just like I would break a database into separate tables, but I think you can probably group them fairly effectively. Now, the way I would turn this in, so first let me bring up Canvas, I guess. And we'll look at the assignment. That's from last time, I guess. Actually, since that's there, can I get to Canvas? Probably not. All right. So I got in late last night, and I'm tired, so help me make sense as we go through this. Also, you might notice that I got nothing graded over the weekend. So tomorrow afternoon, I'll try to catch up on the grading. So if you have stuff that's out there that isn't graded, that's why I didn't have any time this weekend. All right, so when we go to Mongo, so remember the show tracker, just real quickly, I'll do that. The idea is to create a database that tracks all the shows in town, right? Basically, who's playing where. So you want to know who the venues are. You want to know who the artists are that are playing at that, what shows are scheduled. And then there's also the idea that a fan can register and say that I'm interested in these artists. And whenever one of those artists has a show, they'll be notified. Now, for the database, you don't have to go through the material. You don't have to write the code that would get them notified. Just have that information available. Does that make sense? So that they could be notified. So that's sort of this. Now, and the first assignment, if I go back to the modules, down here is collections JSON. There's no, is that going to pop up? It's really slow. There's no diagram here. There's no ERD. There's no tables and columns and data types and all of that. So, I mean, there are probably tools that you could use to get a gist of what you want to do. I'm going to suggest Notepad. That's what we're going to do here. And you can actually just sort of outline this on Notepad, and then you can turn in the Notepad. I will look at them, and then we will go through and we'll figure out how to turn those into records that we use. So I'm going to bring up Notepad. And I'm going to make it bigger. So maybe like 28. All right. So one of the things that I would suggest, even though you don't have to do any extensive planning, it's probably a good idea to get an idea of what you want your records to look like in general. Even though you can put whatever you want in a collection, they don't have to match each other at all. Generally, you want them to kind of resemble each other so that when you search, you have common things to search for. Does that make sense? So I'm going to do like a practice little database. We'll call it product reviews. Now, not everything on this will be stuff you could insert, but I will go through the process of inserting some of it. That is not part of this assignment. This assignment is just to come up with this, what it would look like. If you were doing product reviews, what do you think some of the collections would be? And collections are a lot like tables. They're collections of objects, of JSON objects. Any ideas? Yeah. What? Reading? Rating. You might. Although, so I'm thinking that might be like a field in one. I mean, you could. Let's just hold that for a moment. We could maybe use it like for a field. So my relational database, mine, says that there should be something like products, like a list of products. And there should be a collection of reviewers and maybe a collections of reviews at least, right? And you could do this. And actually, I'm not sure it's a bad idea. I've seen things where they do products and they do reviews, and then if they repeat some of that same information in reviewer or reviews. But you could also just do it all in the view. I'm going to show you kind of a mixture of these. And I just want to, I don't want to confuse you, but I just want to get an idea. One of the things that developers like about this stuff is that it's pretty wide open, whereas with a relational database, everything is strictly controlled. You know, I kind of like the strictly controlled, but develop freeform of this. So let's do a collection called products if we wanted to. And this will be relatively simple, and then I'll show you, we'll kind of build, and then reviews will do it if you combine everything. So these always start with a like just because it's that way it stands for
JavaScript.
Yeah, it's yes, exactly, a JavaScript object notation. Although technically they're not JavaScript objects, but that's a longer story. So it's just JavaScript. You guys done JavaScript? If you do web stuff, you'll do JavaScript because JavaScript is the language of the web, basically.
Next quarter for me.
Yeah, and one reason why, another reason why NoSQL is popular to some extent is because there is web programmers are really comfortable with JavaScript usually, and since the data is stored as JavaScript, it makes it really easy for them to integrate it with their web pages. Does that make sense? And NoSQL databases are used most often for like pulling stuff off the web, scraping data off of it. You can also use it if you just have a big form, just dump it into you can dump it directly, unlike a relational database where you have to shred it, all the appropriate fields and different tables and stuff. It's a lot more work. Here you can just take the whole content and shove it into one.
Did you tab over for your spaces, or just
I'm just spacing over. Actually, something when you're dealing with like JavaScript and with things like basic like Linux-based stuff, it's almost always better to space than to tab. Tabs don't always transfer across platforms.
Mhm.
What would be a better program than Notepad for this, by the way, is brackets. Wouldn't you use brackets? It's much better, much nicer for this. But you can do it in Notepad just fine. So if we've got a product, now one of the fields that's always in here, and you can use double quotes or single quotes, there's always an ID. If you do an ID yourself, if you put the ID field in there, you need to give it a value. And it doesn't have to be a number. It could be a name. It could be something else. If you do not put your own ID in there, it will provide the ID. Does that make sense? So there will always be an ID field, an underscore ID. If you put it in, then you're in charge of controlling the values. It has to be unique. It's just like a primary key. It has to be unique. It's not like a primary key in that you don't use it to directly relate things in other tables. There's no such thing as a join. Idiots. Anybody have a good product idea? Oh, also, numbers don't have to be quick. Any good, let's say, product name. The other thing is, so I'm doing this all lowercase, and that actually tends to be the way most people do it, but there's no absolute rule. You could camel case this, you could do whatever you want. But it is case sensitive. So if you do it camel case one time and all lowercase the next time, as far as it's concerned, it's two different fields. Does that make sense? Anybody have a product? Could be any kind of product, I don't care. We said product reviews, we didn't say what kind of products. They could be tech products, they could be, yeah, that's what I did last quarter, last period.
That's what everybody wants, I guess.
All right, so let's do iPad. Last time we did mini, let's do iPad Pro. So another field would be like price. What would be the price on that? I think they're about $800, aren't they?
Yeah, $799.
Actually, so I don't have to do that because it's a number. Don't put a dollar sign on there, though. Dollar signs are actually reserved for other things. Let's just do company. Apple. As I said, double quotes work also. And anything else that we would want in there? This is just a name of products. I mean, if it was inventory or something, which I'm not sure I would recommend using NoSQL for an inventory, but if it were, you might have quantity or something in there.
A big product type, like tablet,
That might work. We could do a product type.
like computers and other things in it.
That's actually a good idea. And we'll just do, there are other tablets. They're not like the Samsung tablet or something like
I
that.
wouldn't buy them.
Are they bad?
To me, the iPads are the only tablets that are really viable. Android phones are fine, but
Yeah,
the tablets are just not that good.
Thanks.
Yep.
they're cheaper.
Yeah, much cheaper.
They're about half the price.
So if you just get the regular $329 iPad, that one's very nice too.
So if you like the Samsung one, if you like the Android interface, I mean the Android interface is messy. I guess that's the.
Google's latest tablet is their what is it, Pixel Slate, I think it is, which isn't even running Android. It's running Chrome OS.
Oh,
It shows that they don't really think that Android is a great tablet operating system either.
well, they're moving away from. They're doing Android, but they're trying to move away from the Java base because they've been sued by Oracle so many times.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do reviewers. So this is one way to do these. And as I said, all I'm doing is sort of figuring out this is just what does a record look like? And we're going to make a much more complicated one when we do reviews. Reviewer, I'm going to let it provide the ID. And I'm going to do, so we'll do the reviewer name. And anybody have a good name to use? Last time I did Norman Bates.
Charlie Walker.
Spelled E-Y.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do their email. and I'm just going to do it as email. Now, part of the issue with these when you're doing them, you don't have to spend a lot of time doing development, but you really want to develop some kind of like naming convention, which I'm not sure I have here. You want some kind of, to have some kind of a map to go on, just so you know what to query and how to do it. So I'm just going to do sw@gmail, which is an unlikely. So a couple of things. If you do these in Notepad, which is how I would suggest doing them, as I said, because you can fix them in Notepad and then paste them into the thing. The things that are going to drive you insane are commas, right? I do want to do a little bit different here, maybe. Well, we'll look, because you can do an array here, and I didn't show you way to do an array. Well, there are different price ranges for apples, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the iPad, even the iPad Pro.
Yeah. I think they go up to like $2,300
Wow.
for a tablet.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. If you want like the 13-inch with the highest memory capacity.
So that's like 2,300.
I think so, yeah.
What's in between?
There's a $1,000 one. That's the starting price of the 13-inch. Was it $1,200 or $1,300 one?
Well, we have enough. We just
Yeah,
need.
that's-
Didn't know any of them went up to 2,300.
Yep. Also, if they have LTE, that they give you like a couple $100 premium for that for some reason. Put in a modem.
I was looking at Samsung TVs at Costco. This is totally irrelevant, but there were two 80. Were they 80? I think there were two 80-inch TVs. Both were 4G. One of them was $800 and the other was $2,700.
Jeez.
And I asked what the difference was, and I guess it's a more sophisticated technology for rendering, but they both look good. I mean, I'd probably go for the $800 one. So I wanted to show you can do arrays like that, where you have multiple prices and things, or multiple things, which is illegal in a relational database. Remember, first normal form, no arrays. But you can do that in these. So I wanted to be able to do that. So let's do a review, and then I'm going to do something here that could make both of these irrelevant, or you could have both of them plus what we're going to do in reviews. So I guess I'm going to just do a lot of empty spaces so I can come back up. All right, so I'll do my two curly braces. And what I'm going to do is first I'm going to do the review stuff. So I'm going to let it number it, but I'm going to do like a title. I have no idea. All right. And what else so we want like a date, maybe. Let's say review date.
We have to have the keys in single quotes too, right?
You don't have to,
Oh no.
but it's not a bad idea.
Seems way easier to not do it.
Yeah. So as long as it is one word, and as long as it's not a reserved word, like if I just did date, it might get confused. You don't have to put the key in quotes, but you almost always, and these You have to put them in quotes unless it's numeric. I will show you how to do this in the Compass too, but I find Compass so painful to use. Maybe you won't, though. So I'm going to do, there is a date time function which you can use, but I'm just going to say, I'm just going to do it as characters. All right, and then let's say rating. This is where I would put the rating. And it depends on what you're going to do for rating. I'm thinking of just 0 to 5. Let's do 4.5. And then, is there anything? So I'm going to do, then I'm going to do like product. And I'm going to do a colon. And I'm going to actually enter the product object. I'm looking for the bottom. All right. So I will do, we entered the product ID, right? So I'm going to do like product lowercase. Also, just like, and then I'm going to re-enter the iPad thing. So product name. Okay. We'll do iPad Pro. And then I'll just do the prices. In fact, I'll just copy that. I don't know if I'll do the Apple, but let's add that for that. I wanted to search for all the tablets or something.
So what are we doing here?
We're entering a sub-object here. We're entering the product directly into the review.
Why would you do that?
Because it makes it easier to search. Actually, so when I look at NoSQL databases, this is actually more common than doing the separate ones that I did before. As I said, my mind is kind of on a relational basis. These are more like how you do it in a relational database, right?
Yeah.
Each collection is essentially just a table. But in a NoSQL database, it's much more common to kind of just shove all the information together.
So this is like kind of like how a foreign key would be previously, or?
Well, there's no foreign keys, right? So
Right.
there's more
Like, is this how you,
redundancy.
like, link it?
There's a lot of repetition, right?
Yeah, this seems really redundant.
It is. It's extremely redundant. They don't care.
Huh.
That's the partially, as I said, you wouldn't be necessarily taking this in by typing it in. You would be getting it off of a website. You're just taking the stuff off the form and pasting it. So, but it's not uncommon to do this. And then we'll do like a reviewer, and we'll add the reviewer object. And I'll do a curly brace, and I'll kill the curly brace. And then I'll do,
What's the point of having the other? Is it just so like that way
well,
you can search
so it's possible that if you do this, you wouldn't have the other two.
Oh, okay.
So you might not do these at all.
I was thinking like,
Or you might, if you do those, so it allows you to just search products by itself. Or you could just search those themselves. Or you could just do it here. I mean, as I said, my mindset is more relational, so I think of these. But I think you could actually get by, and this might actually be more NoSQL, is just to do this one thing that has all the information in it.
that's what I was thinking. Is like, is that how most people do it? Is like just a giant tree of one?
Yeah, if you look at like the Twitter feed, or most social media have an API which will put out JSON files. It's all there in one big chunk, one big JSON file with lots of sub-objects. So it would have the username and the user profile information. It would have the actual content of the post, and then it would have the all the likes and all the metadata about how many times it had been seen, etc. I mean, the Twitter one has, Twitter is what, to 55 characters or something like that. That for each tweet,
280, I think.
it may be 280. But what it is now is you've got, when you look at the API for the JSON, it's like a 7-page document, because it has the user information, it has everybody that ever liked the tweet, it has everybody that retweeted it, it has all the stats for every interaction with it.
So something that has like 1 million likes, it's got every person that liked it?
Yeah. Well, I think that they probably put a limit on what they put out for that.
Huh.
We could look at them if you want.
That's insane, yeah. Take a look at what we looks like.
You have to get a permission generally to do. Well, you register and you can get 500 at a time from Twitter, and you're not reading their database. You're scraping it off the live feed. Does that make sense? So I think you have to pay to have access to their database.
Oh my God.
Same with Facebook. Facebook will give limited ability to scrape live feed, but Facebook sells the ability to, for the most part. All right, so reviewer, did I use reviewer name up here? Yeah. Not that these have to match, but it probably makes life easier if they do a little bit. Reviewer name, and then I'll do so we'll do the same name for the first one. I'm going to do 2 of these, I think. I'm just going to paste those in there. Okay, so a couple of things that are going to probably drive you crazy if you're doing these. Again, all the commas. There's a comma here. There's no comma after the last item of each object. And each one has to have the curly braces. And then the curly brace that contains the whole review. You know what we're missing on a review other than the rating? And I could put it down here, or I could put it up here. Well, we have the reviewer. What we don't have is any like review text.
Oh, the actual review?
Yeah, the actual review. iPads are fun, the end. But you can put however much text you want there.
So for the assignment, are you going to want us to just basically have everything in one giant thing?
So it's up to you.
Okay.
I mean, it's way wide open.
Gotcha.
You could break it up like this and combine some things. Like one of the things that might make some sense is to have a complete product specs and a product thing, and just partial spec in here. Does that make sense? And you might have more about the reviewers, and then just their name and email down here or something. I mean, you could have a products collection that gives a real complete description of the product, and then in the review, just a partial description of the product.
When you're putting like, say if you want to put the product name into the reviews table or whatever we're calling this, are you actually sharing that information? Like, is there?
No, they're totally independent of each other.
So yeah, so it really is redundant then. So
Yeah, it's
like,
absolutely redundant, and it has all the dangers of redundancy.
Huh.
If you type it wrong, if you change the name, it may not show.
so how is it like the product IDs? How are those gonna like?
So you could do that. All right, so this allows you to fake relational to some extent. Now, you can't do a join. But what you could do is you could look up a product that you're interested in, see what number it has. And then you could do a query of this other table with that number to see if it matches. But you could do this as equally as the name of it.
Mhm.
It's just that the number may be less prone to alternate spellings, you know.
I guess that's what I mean too. So it's like if the product name, it's exactly the same spelling.
You could
like,
search for both, but they're not sharing. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's hard to.
It's a
Hard to
it's a
think
very
about.
different idea. It's really, if you think about a collection, you're just stuffing JSON objects in it. There's no relationship between collections except what you build in your own head. So if you wanted to repeat, if you had a product table, and then you wanted to repeat the product ID and the reviews, you could, if you wanted, leave all this stuff out. I mean, you could make it behave more relationally. But there's no joins. So what it means is you'd have to do two queries. You'd have to query the product table to get the product information, separate query, and then query this one to get the reviews based on that, which is, maybe not horrible, but, there's no way to do a joint query.
Seems like it would be very, very hard to like search for information or like know what you're searching for.
Knowing what you're searching for is probably the hardest part. And that's why one of the things is some kind of logic to how you structure these is useful. Developers like these, though, because you don't have to do a lot of development. With a relational database, it takes weeks or months to design the structure of the database.
Right.
These you can kind of people are learning that they can't do it quite as off the cuff as they were, just because it is hard to get the information out. I'm going to do, let's add one more review. So I'm going to kind of copy from here to here. And I'm going to put a comma here, and then I'm going to paste. So let's change, what else do we want to review? What? I copied from here to here. So I copied the entire review thing. So let's say, Surface, Microsoft Surface. And we could add this to the product thing, right? So let's make it a product too. We don't have it there. Just take it down to a 4. And this will be a Microsoft Surface. Anybody know what the price range of Surface is? They're expensive. They're like MacBooks.
I would say they start at $799 as well.
Do they?
But you have to buy the keyboard.
Oh, right.
Actually, that's the thing with the iPad price too. It's actually like $1,900 is the most expensive. But
If you
add
buy the keyboard.
and the pencil, that's when it gets up to $2,300.
Yeah, I think mine was $800 and then the pencil. So.
Yeah. You get the Pro?
Yeah. So let's add a different reviewer. Anybody have another reviewer?
Who's that famous Johnny Depp played in that movie? Hunter S. Thompson.
Okay. The journalist.
Yeah.
The Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Right.
He's dead now, but that's okay. So my sense of them are that they're expensive, somewhat underpowered laptops.
Yeah. The Surface laptops are actually really nice.
They're getting better. The laptop as opposed to the tablet one.
Yeah, the one that's actually designed like a laptop. That one looks really nice. And more ports.
So we have two of these now, and I didn't add the reviews in that, but I could.
Is the title, is like the title on this one is iPad family of tablets, but then the other title is the actual title of the product.
It just depends on what you would title it. So it's whatever the review is
Oh, it's the
titled.
review title.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a square bracket here, and I'm going to do a square bracket at the end of this, and we can load both of those at once. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of add those to the Mongo. This isn't part of the assignment, but I just want to show you how you can search that so that you can see that it does work.
Where's the first bracket?
So the first bracket is right before.
Oh, gotcha.
So what we're doing is we're making an array with two objects, two review objects.
You need a comma after the last.
So you need a comma after this one, but not after the last. As I said, the things that are going to drive you insane here are commas. And it'll fail. One comma out of place and it'll all fail. All right, so I'm going to launch the two things. I want to. So first MongoD. While I'm here, I'm going to change my fonts. Default. It's at 24, but let's do it like at 36. I won't change that, but then I'm going to do Mongo, and that's bigger. MongoD is the server.
Okay.
So you want to run MongoD first. And then Mongo is the client. This is the command line. So I will show you a little bit of how to do this in Compass as well, but the command line is so much easier for me at least. Also, it's really good for you to get a little bit of exposure to a command line. More and more work is being done at the command line, which is weird because I spent years trying to get away from the command line. I'm going back. It's more efficient. It's a bit of a pain, but. So I'm going to say use, let's call it product reviews. And I press enter, and notice it says switch to product reviews. That's created the database. That's all it takes to create a database. That being said, I find that a bit of a pain. So if I come in and accidentally type product reviews with a capital R, I've got an extra database that has nothing in it. I've done that before, and I've gone in there and said, where's all my stuff? And it's because I typed it wrong, and so it's a brand new database. So having done that, I am going to create a collection. So first of all, I'll do the two simple ones, even though there's not much there. So I'm going to say DB. DB is the current context. So the current context is product reviews, whatever you're using at the moment. So DB is the current context. You can name the collections whatever you want. So I'm going to name it products. And if I do insert, and open a parentheses. I can go to here, so I'm going to go up to products. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to copy it. And then down here, I'm going to write, I have a syntax error. What's missing? Let's take a look at it. Comma, 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 comma.
Is it product type?
What?
Product type?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
missing a quote. Thank you. Good eye. All right. So there's a couple things you can do. I could recopy this. So if I press enter there, if I do, no, that just gave me the one. Never mind. So I'm going to do db.products.insert. And I'm not sure if I recopied it. So I will now.
You're copying it with the product's name at the top.
No,
You do both.
no. From here down. Yeah, if you copy with the product's name, it'll fail. And you can do Control-C as well. All right, and then I need to close the parentheses. And then it says that it inserted one. I think we did a little of this before. If I do db.products.find, and I'm also going to do .pretty. Remember .pretty? Did I do that for you? It will show me that I have that one product. And I'm going to do db.reviewers. I'll add the one reviewer too. Reviewers.insert. And this will create the, if you just insert or find, it creates the collection. Again, there are problems with that. So I'm going to do the reviewers. Again, from the curly brace to the curly brace. I'm going to paste, close the parentheses, and it inserted that too. db.reviewers.find. We'll do a couple queries in a moment, but probably more with the other one. Why did it not? Oh, I have an extra I in my reviewers up there. You should be careful with this. So there it is. And you can see what the object ID looks like. I didn't do pretty, so it didn't spread it out like that. All right, so the last one, db.reviews.insert. And I'm going to try, if I didn't type anything wrong, I'm going to do from the square bracket all the way down to the other square bracket. All right, and then I'm going to do a paren. And if I'm lucky, it'll say 2 records inserted, which it does. I was lucky. If you didn't get that, there could be errors. It'll list errors. So notice it says write errors, that's an empty set. Concern errors is an empty set. Inserted is 2. Upserted. Upserted is where you basically you insert a new record, but you change existing other records, which is something you usually don't do in relational database too. So any kind of typo, any error, anything, won't be there.
So So the reviews, reviewers, and products, in this, those are called collections, or are those?
Those are called collections. In fact, let me do.
I have that in the errors.
Okay, I'll take a look. DB. I'm going to do DB collection or Git. Is it Git collections? So, oh, I know what it is. DB dot Git collection names. And see how it has products, reviewers, and reviews.
There's a two. Oh, I did something.
Where's the open one for this one? Reviewer. This one. No comment there. That's good. That's this one? Okay, that's this one. So that one should not have a comment because that is. Now there may be other mistakes with that. Yeah, so first you do, so let's go down. Now you can read that. So I want to do a couple of quick queries just to show you that it works. Did you have a question, Taylor?
Yeah, I'm getting syntax error.
Okay. There's probably lots of syntax errors just for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so let's take it for good. Let's see here. How much were you doing? You were doing. Oh, did you type these
I
two
did.
things in?
Yeah.
He's trying
That's what we take.
the DB and something. Or DB, DB is the try to put this, I would just, do parentheses and then just copy. That has everything. That's what this is. And then, so actually there's a. So that's what the answer is. These are just self-images. We'll also post on them. Troubleshooting these is a pain, just to let you know. So I'm going to do a couple of queries. These queries and inserting are not part of this assignment, by the way. These are just to help you. So let's say we wanted in review, maybe we wanted only to see things. So we got 799 there. So there's 799. There's a 799 in both of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's do. I'm going to do db.reviews.find. I did call it reviews, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say where. Okay. So inside of here we got price. Okay. So I'm going to do single quotes, product dot price, and then I will do it was $799.99,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to close that and close the parentheses. So a couple of things that I want to show this. One is you can do a query as sub-object when you have them broken up into objects like this. So product is a sub-object and price is a field that belongs to that. Does that make sense? So inside of our little product sub-thing with its curly braces, there's a thing called price. So we're saying look inside of product, look inside of price, and then we're looking inside of an array for one particular value. And I guess I'll do pretty. And it gets both of them because they both have $799 in the list, right? So it has the Surface and it also has the iPad up above. It found both of those because they both have $799 in the list. With an array, you don't have to loop through it. It just finds whatever value is. If there's a value in the array that matches, it just takes it. It does it automatically, goes through the list. If I wanted to, so we got tablet. Did I list them both as tablets? Probably shouldn't have.
The Surface is technically a tablet.
Yeah, I think it is too. So there are some nice things about Surfaces actually.
Yeah.
They have a really nice pen. And, yeah. It does double quotes when it returns it. It actually doesn't matter whether you use double quotes or single quotes as long as you're consistent on both sides, right? So I've been doing a lot of Python for Django preparing, and I've been using a lot of single quotes, so it's just more habit now. So let's say if we wanted to just see Hunter S. Thompson. So I'm going to do db.reviews. Now there are ways, and I might show you when we get more into the queries, to not have to show everything, that you can select what you want to see. But I'll do that later. So I'm just going to say find, and I'm going to do a curly brace. And we'll do reviewer. dot reviewer name. And then I'll do a colon and I'll say Hunter S. Thompson. So I only want to see reviews by Hunter S. Thompson. And I'll do a pretty. And I found nothing. Why?
Did you use
A dot after this?
Didn't I spell review wrong? No, reviewer name.
Oh, the TH.
Oh, I spelled it wrong. So one of the things you can do is if you use the up arrow, it gives you your last command.
If you didn't do the dot pretty, would it just be like a non-word wrapped kind of thing?
Yeah,
Just a long string?
I'll do it without the dot pretty and then we'll do it with it. And again, if the pretty is only for like, if you were returning it to a web page, that would be just fine because then you just sort it out. And then if I add the dot pretty is just basically to make it more readable in this environment. So you can query, if you break it up into sub-objects like this and do it all as one big blob, it's not that hard to query. I guess that's the only point I wanted to do. And there are lots of sophisticated queries that we're not doing, and probably where you can sum things up and average things and do all the different kinds of math, and count things, and all this stuff. Because one of the things that these are really good for is big data and trying to figure out, the statistical analysis. So you can figure out what kinds of things to count and what kinds of things to average, and you can extract those things and send them off to a relational database or send them off to a spreadsheet too for calculations. Okay, I think that's good enough. Now I know that didn't work, and if you want, I can try to troubleshoot those that didn't work. But it's a bit of, as I said, it's hard to. Again, I would suggest writing them in Notepad. It's easier to see them there, although I was having trouble with Taylor's to see it. I didn't see anything wrong.
If you do it in brackets, does it like do the spacing?
Brackets would give you spacing, and it also troubleshoots a bit. So brackets would tell you when you're missing a quote, or it would tell you when you're.
That's so.
Yeah, it would be
I really
helpful
like
for that.
brackets.
Yeah. Brackets really good for HTML and JavaScript and those kinds of.
Yeah.
I could also, although I don't have it here, I haven't tried this, but VH Code or VS Code, Microsoft's thing, has a JavaScript interpreter. It would probably give us some error. It's just really hard to troubleshoot these with a naked eye. One comma, one quote, and the error messages you might have noticed are not all that useful. Yeah.
I'm actually using VS Code in mine, and I'm actually just doing a JSON file.
And did it work pretty well?
It's working pretty well. Didn't like just doing like. Like you were doing this. It wasn't
Yeah,
exactly
well, so that's not part of the JSON. Yeah.
Is VS Code on Mac or is that?
It'll run on anything. It's Microsoft's new product. It'll run on Linux. It'll run on Macs. It'll run on Windows, of course. Yeah. And it's lightweight, unlike Visual Studio. I like it a lot, actually.
What's the difference between it and Visual Studio?
Visual Studio is a much more massive program. Has all sorts of additional tool sets. Has a lot of team programming tools. It has a much more expansive GUI. That being said, I actually kind of prefer VS Code.
Huh.
But Visual Studio is sort of the premier programming platform for Windows development, anyway. So when I wrote things like this, because you're saying these are just notes basically, because this isn't part of the JSON. So if you comment them, they would probably be fine.
It doesn't like comments either, actually. It says comments aren't allowed in JSON files or something like that.
I think I did hear that. So it doesn't allow you to just do a double slash or anything,
Yeah, I mean, it'll still show up green as if it was a comment, but
but it tells you that they're not allowed. Yeah. That's because you're doing the whole thing as a JSON file. Yeah, and this is just a. These are just to let me know what the, what the collections are. If I were to if you wanted to make them so that they were a script that you could insert, you would have to do like db dot, and it would still not give it to you in the JSON file because this is just Mongo. I mean, you could do that, and then you could just do this, and you could actually insert the whole. You wouldn't have to write anything. You just cut and paste it as a product.
it also looks like there's a way to just import JSON files directly instead of copy pasting. Like what it wants you to do is like make one JSON file for each collection.
Right. You could, yeah. But actually, that's a good idea. It probably gives you more troubleshooting, right? It showed the. I should put this into VS Code and check it. Particularly if you're having a problem, that might be a good thing, or brackets, either one. So the point is, for your assignment, is just to come up with something like this for show tracker. It's wide open in terms of how you want to structure it, right? I'm not 100% on best practices for for the JSON for Mongo. I actually think this last bit is closer to the way they usually do it. It's very redundant though, right? Everybody that reviews the product will be repeated in here. I do think that sometimes they do things like have a product collection that has full product information, and then a review collection that just has some of the product information. Well, the other thing I wanted to say is that both of these are pretty much the same for structure. One of the things about Mongo is that these don't have to be the same, right? Exactly the same. So that maybe you leave out the product type sometimes or include it other times. You might not always have the price. You could leave out columns here, and unlike relational database, it doesn't just it just ignores it if it's gone. And you can add things too. If you want to add other things to a particular review, you can. As long as they're kind of in the same ballpark for what they're doing, you can add and remove columns as you wish.
When I added the reviews collection,
Yeah.
I had my product IDs as one for both items, and it still worked.
Yeah, because they're not the product ID of an actual object. It's not the same as this.
Gotcha.
These are just a field.
So you probably wouldn't even want to put that in there then.
Well, the reason you would put it in there is if you had a products table and you wanted another way to hook to it.
Gotcha.
If you didn't have the products
if
table,
you're
you
just
don't
doing-
need it. Yeah, you don't need it.
If you're just doing everything like that, then you don't.
You don't need it. The last thing we might look real quickly, see if I can do like.
Oh yeah.
See this, I don't know if this will have this is just comments on it. I want to see an actual version of it. These are pieces that are in it. They're not. There are actually more.
That's how it's laid out without data in it, I guess.
Yeah. So if you don't have any data, yeah, there's just a. But that I've seen it. When I downloaded it, they were much bigger. This is Twitter, fundamental Twitter elements. Wonder if they have an example. Extended tweet, tweet objects, data dictionaries, quote tweet objects, post and retrieve. I'm just looking to see if there's an example. There it is. Example. Let's see. That's yeah. Why? Sometimes when I was doing this on my own, I found one right away. If you see, where it's at.
Just Google tweet JSON example,
Yeah.
and then the fourth result.
Is this Google? This is probably Bing.
Oh yeah, that's big. So this sample Twitter JSON response. It's a GitHub page.
Oh yeah, GitHub probably makes sense. So JSON.
Tweet JSON example.
There we go. And it was.
It's the fourth one. Right there.
Yeah, that looks more like what I've seen.
Is that a tweet?
That is a tweet, yes. With all the fields that are available. So status, favorited, truncated, created at, ID string, entities, URLs, hashtags. These are all things that can be in there.
But say if that had like 1,000 people favorited it, that would have the list of all 1,000 people.
So I don't know if I have a list of all the 1,000 or just say 1,000.
Ah.
You know.
Oh yeah. Maybe that's just the number.
And then you get down to the profile, right? So default profile, screen name, etc. Hashtags, retweet count. There's a lot of stuff in there. But this is what JSON can look like in these kinds of data structures. And again, if you know the fields, you're probably most of these you will ignore, but a lot of these you can use if you're looking for specific information. You can extract it and count it and average it and do all sorts of different things. Like if you just wanted to count the Python file I had, you could go in and you could choose a search term, and it would give you'd have like 5 or 10 minutes to get. They have a limit if you're doing it for free for 500 tweets at a time, but you can stop for a few minutes and do it again. You can get a pretty hefty database fairly quickly. I'm not expecting you to write anything like that. So, as I said, all that the assignment is asking for is basically just get a kind of a pattern of what you think what collections do you think you would have, and what do you think they would look like. And it's pretty wide open, and what we'll do is we'll discuss them. And then the next thing is to build the database and add a few records, and then I'll show you how to do some queries. And the whole point of this is just to give you a taste of a NoSQL database. because the database world is changing. It's relational and NoSQL. NoSQL is making pretty good inroads. It's really good at what it does, which is basically capture media type things. It's much better than a relational database for that, but it's not as good as a relational database for things like inventory or accounting or point of sale or, relational databases won't go away. The other thing I'll mention is that there's a lot of merging going on. Relational databases are building in NoSQL elements, and NoSQL is trying to get back to some of the reliability of relational. So, what we'll do on Wednesday, if you haven't finished these, we'll finish these up and then go over them. If you finish them before then, I'll do it. Also, I think I mentioned this, but I didn't get any grading done this weekend. So if you have stuff that's up for grading, I'll try to do that tomorrow. I doubt if I'll get to it today. Questions? Did that make sense, or did I just confuse you? Or
so like if you loaded a page of Twitter and like it had like 15 tweets on it, would the browser basically be like loading in that length of stuff times 15?
That's actually a really good question. I don't know if the browser reloads all of that. Because I don't think you can, like if you went to the page source or something, I don't think you would see all of that.
Yeah, right.
I think that what you have to do, I think all that information is available with the tweet, but usually like when you write the Python program to pull this stuff in, you have to go to Twitter and get a key, a registration. And once you have that registration, and it's free, but then you can get all that information.
So that's all the data that Twitter has about.
That's all the data that the Twitter has about each individual tweet.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you can do the same thing with like Facebook. Facebook's a little bit more proprietary about it.
Yeah.
You have to pay
privacy.
Yeah. You have to. I think there is some contractual things that, and I think maybe with Twitter too. When you do it for a free key, you have to promise that you're only doing it for like statistics and academic reasons. You're not trying to make money off of it.
Yeah. Or swing elections.
Right. And then on the, I think on the Facebook thing, you have to promise that you will leave off. I think they strip names out, but you can still get a lot of the other information.
Yeah.
One of the arguments is that even with the names gone, if you really wanted to, you could probably figure out who it was.
Yeah. You don't need too many points of information to figure out who the person is.
With the Twitter ones, the names are in there, but usually you're not. Well, people do tweet some pretty private things, I think, but Twitter is not so much of a. It tends to be more public. I mean, it's not as. How would I say? You're not usually posting every detail of your life on there like Facebook.
Yeah. Facebook, you are. A lot of people are. And from what it sounds like it's not too hard to kind of trick Facebook into giving you all their information, because apparently that's how Cambridge Analytica did all their stuff.
Yeah.
And posing to be like some.
I saw. I think it was on 60 Minutes. They did the European, fairly young guy that got the European laws passed about privacy. One of the things he did is he did a lawsuit that had Facebook give him all the information they had on him, and it came out to 900 pages.
That's crazy.
And the thing is, they have massive amounts of information even from people that aren't on Facebook.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not surprised though, because I've done some of that Google Takeout stuff, and like you'll get a lot of information that you just like. I didn't know you had that much on me.
You can now. I think Facebook will let you download what they have on you, but it is usually gigs.
Yeah. That's what Google Takeout is for Google stuff. I can't imagine it's probably even worse for Facebook. mean, I don't use Facebook that much, so maybe not for me. But
I have a lot of friends that I only keep contact with because of Facebook, so I haven't dropped it.
yeah, that's the only reason I still have a Facebook account.
They do have at the school here, there's the developers Facebook
Oh, yeah,
group,
I
which
know
is
that
actually
too.
pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I just recently got into that.
I will post this, so before I close it, I will post it. I don't know if it'll help, but at least it ran, so if yours didn't run, you can look at it and see.
Were you recording at the beginning?
I was, so
I
it's
came
still
a little bit late, so-
recording.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's recording my chattiness as well
Recording
as,
this nonsense.
yeah.